Today's episode is brought to you by the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about garden history and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and today is November 15th. Well, I tell you what, last week I took Max in for his follow-up vaccinations. Max is a black lab that we got last year after Sonny passed away, and we've treated him for Lyme disease, and now we just want to make sure that he stays super healthy. Anyway, when I was at this new vet that we're going to, they had these really cool little stickers about pet poisons, and they shared the top 10 cat toxins as well as the top 10 dog toxins. And as someone who researches plants, I found this information to be fascinating, and I wanted to quickly share it with you. But on the top 10 list for toxins for dogs, there weren't any plants, but they did mention things like chocolate, mouse and rat poisons. Those are things that Max definitely is attracted to. And then grapes and raisins. Those also made the list along with other things. Oh, and fertilizers. So these are the items that I think pertain to gardeners. But when it comes to cats, since I don't have cats, I wasn't as well informed. But the number one toxin on the list for cats, what do you think that is? Any guesses? Well, it's lilies. That surprised me. I had no idea that cats were attracted to lilies and that this was such a big problem for them. And then, of course, cat owners also have to watch out for mouse and rat poisons. They also have to watch for dog medications, whether that's the flea and tick medicine that you have on hand or other types of medications that you might be using for your dog. And then here are two other things that gardeners might find interesting that are toxic for cats. The first is essential oils. That can be very toxic for cats. And then also onions and garlic. Onions and garlic can be a problem for dogs as well, but they did not make the top 10 list. So here you go. Cats and dogs and plant toxins and gardener items that you might want to watch out for to make sure that your pet stays healthy. All right, let's get to today's garden history. It was on this day, November 15th, in 1791, that Australia's first thriving grapevine was planted. The first fleet's Captain Arthur Phillip brought grape cuttings with him to Australia from South America and South Africa, and he produced a small vineyard at a place called Farm Cove. Today, Farm Cove is the location of the Sydney Botanical Gardens, but the grapes did not thrive there. They did not produce. And so when that happened, Captain Arthur Phillip transplanted the grapevines to Parramatta in New South Wales, where Arthur Phillip served as the very first governor. His crimson grapes flourished in that area in the warm Australian fertile soil. And today, crimson grapes can also be found in Victoria and southeastern Queensland. Those are areas that are ideal for grape growing. Australian crimson grapes enjoy a long harvest period from November, starting right now, all the way through to May. And today we also celebrate the birthday of Charlotte Mary Mew, the English poet who was born on this day, November 15th in 1869. In her poem, In Nunhead Cemetery, Mary wrote, "There is something horrible about a flower. This broken in my hand is one of those. He threw it in just now. It will not live another hour. There are thousands more. You do not miss a rose." And in The Sunlit House, Mary wrote, "The parched garden flowers, their scarlet petals, from the beds unswept, like children unloved and ill-kept. But I, the stranger, knew that I must stay, pace up the weed-grown paths and down, till one afternoon, from an upper window, a bird flew out, and I went on my way." And today we celebrate the birthday of the American modernist artist Georgia O'Keeffe, who was born on this day, November 15th, in 1887. During her incredible career as a painter, Georgia O'Keeffe created over 900 works of art. She's remembered for her iconic paintings of skulls and flowers. In 1938, Georgia's career stalled, but it was around this time that she was approached by an advertising agency. They wanted her to create 2 paintings for the Hawaiian Pineapple Company, now known as the Dole Food Company, and they wanted to use those paintings in their advertising. Georgia was 51 years old at the time when she took 9 weeks, an all-expense-paid trip to Hawaii, and she never did paint a pineapple. Little fun fact. And gardeners will also enjoy this obscure fact about Georgia O'Keeffe. Of all the floral paintings that Georgia created in Hawaii, exactly none of them were native plants to the island. Instead, Georgia loved the exotic tropicals that had been imported from South America, the bougainvillea, plumeria, heliconia, calliandra, and the white bird of paradise. All beautiful flowers, but none of them native to Hawaii. It was Georgia O'Keeffe who said all of these quotes about flowers, a subject for which she held strong opinions. She said, "Nobody sees a flower, really. It is so small, it takes time. Like to have a friend takes time." She also wrote, "I hate flowers. I paint them because they're cheaper than models and they don't move." She wrote, "If you take a flower in your hand and really look at it, it's your world for a moment." And finally, she wrote, "I decided that if I could paint a flower on a huge scale, you could not ignore its beauty." And today we also celebrate the birthday of James Graham Ballard, who went by the pen name J.G. Ballard. He was an English novelist, and he was born on this day, November 15th, in 1930. James was part of the new wave of science fiction in the 1960s, but he's most remembered for his 1984 war novel, Empire of the Sun. I think my mom and dad had a copy of that. In his book, The Unlimited Dream Company, James wrote these words, "Miriam, I'll give you any flowers you want." Rhapsodizing over the 1,000 scents of her body, I exclaimed, "I'll grow orchids from your hands, roses from your breasts. You can have magnolias in your hair. In your womb, I'll set a fly trap." And in The Garden of Time, James wrote, "Axel," his wife asked with sudden seriousness, "before the garden dies, may I pick the last flower?" Understanding her request, he nodded slowly. And that, by the way, is a great story for gardeners, The Garden of Time by J.G. Ballard. And James also once wrote this quote, "I believe in madness, in the truth of the inexplicable, in the common sense of stones, in the lunacy of flowers." It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, a man I think who has one of the best names of our modern time. Well, this book came out in 2021, and the subtitle is How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Shape Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures. Well, this book by Merlin Sheldrake has won all kinds of recognition: the Wainwright Prize, the Royal Society Science Book Prize, the Guild of Food Writers Award. It was also shortlisted for the British Book Award. So tons of recognition for Merlin for this fantastic book. His publisher writes this about the Entangled Life. In Entangled Life, the brilliant young biologist Merlin Sheldrake shows us the world from a fungal point of view, providing an exhilarating change of perspective. Sheldrake's vivid exploration takes us from yeast to psychedelics to the fungi that range for miles underground and are the largest organisms on the planet, to those that link plants together in complex networks known as the Wood Wide Web, to those that infiltrate and manipulate insect bodies with devastating precision. Well, Entangled Life is a fascinating read. I love the cover. It's a really great book for kids, for young adults, for whom this book can be a complete revelation. And Merlin's passion for fungi knows no bounds, and I think that also makes his work resonate with his readers. Fungi are often referred to as a neglected kingdom of life. And as Merlin points out, compared to other kingdoms like the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, we know relatively very little about fungi, and only 6% of the fungi kingdom has thus far been described. And here's a little fun fact about fungi. They are more closely related to animals than to plants. And I'll let Merlin tell you all about that in his book. Today, most plant life in his book. Although for gardeners, it's important to know that most plant life depends on relationships with mycorrhizal fungi, or fungi that live in plant roots. These particular types of fungi help plants acquire water and nutrients, and they also protect the plants from disease. So they're extremely powerful. But it's not just the plants that need fungi. Actually, all life on Earth depends on fungi, just as it does water. Now, most fungi are mycelium, the branching, fusing networks that feed and transport substances around themselves. And fungi have a unique way of organizing themselves. Mycelium actually cover the entire earth in a chaotic, sprawling way. And if you scooped up a little teaspoon of soil and you untangled the mycelium that you found in that single teaspoon, it could be stretched out end to end for up to 10 kilometers. So that is actually like a jumble of fungi thread all under our feet. Just incredible when you think about it. And we're only now beginning to understand the power of that network. This book is 368 pages of the mysterious and miraculous world of fungi. You can get a copy of Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $9. And that makes it a great book for a Christmas gift. It's under $10, and you probably have a little left over to buy a coffee gift card to go with it. All right, we end the show today with a Botanic Spark that celebrates something that happened on this day back in 1909. It was on this day over 100 years ago, November 15th in 1909, that the orange blossom was designated as the official state flower of Florida. Very fitting. This gesture actually inspired the poet William Livingston Larned to write a poem called Florida's State Flower. I stumbled on this little poem and I saved it for today. I thought it was very sweet. Now, I won't read all of it, but I will share the last little bit that I thought was just perfect, a perfect way to honor the orange blossom. Whenever you see the spotless bud, you know 'tis Florida the fair, and wafted to you comes the scent of all the blissful regions there. The rose may have its followers, the violet its standard too, the fleur-de-lis and lily fair in tints of red and pink and blue. But just a scent on pleasure bent of orange sweet the nostrils greet, and from our dreams the castles rise of groves and meadows neath calm skies. Florida's orange blossom. And speaking of oranges, don't forget that you can slice up oranges and dry them and add them to your Christmas garlands. They really are wonderful, and they're a great natural element to add to your Thanksgiving centerpiece. So consider that as well. Well, that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening to The Daily Gardener. Make sure to pay attention to the items that are toxic to your family pet so you don't make a mistake and accidentally hurt them. Keep your pets safe. And just a reminder that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. The next time you're over at Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. And if you'd like more of The Daily Gardener, you can subscribe to the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. And don't forget that you can also show your support for the show by using the Buy Me a Coffee link over at the website or in today's show notes. This is Jennifer Ebling. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.